In this video, we will look at the story of the Major Arcana and how all the cards and the energies that they carry fit into a wholesome narrative of a person's life. The first card is the Fool card. It represents the moment that we are born, the moment that the reborn soul enters the new physical body. This time, in this life, the new soul comes having forgotten many of the lessons that it had learned in the previous lifetime. With the hardships and the pain forgotten, it begins a new life with childlike innocence and unquestionable faith in the possibilities of life. When I say it like that, you might think, oh, I don't remember this time in my life. I don't remember the moment I was born, so I cannot relate to this energy. But that's not true. You need to read these energies more broadly. Think about those times in your life when you started something new, completely carefree. You took the first step on a new path without realizing or even thinking about all potential traps, without any specific long-term vision, without a plan, but with faith that this is what you have to do regardless of what comes next. This light, problem-free phase of any new undertaking in life is represented by the Fool card. It's important to know that here we're talking about spontaneous beginnings, not planned, strategized beginnings that come from meticulous pre-planning. There is naivete and childlike lack of forward thinking with this card. Doing what your heart tells you to do without fear, because within you there are no red flags, no alarms ringing to alert you that the journey you are embarking on might be dangerous. You just believe that this is where you have to go, what you have to do. You feel the calling so strong that you just believe the universe will be there for you. It will be there to hold the space for you and support you. The second step of the journey is represented by the Magician card. It represents the time that the child becomes aware of its own physical body. It realizes that it has the means to achieve its thoughts, desires, and impulses. It is the step of every journey when you realize that you have the prerequisites to materialize your inner immaterial desires, thoughts, and ideas. You have the physical body to execute your metaphysical soul. The physical allows you to materialize the metaphysical, to bridge the gap between thinking and doing. You have what is needed to be not just an observer, but an actor, to be active, not just receptive. And because you can modify the objective reality, you can plug yourself into the grander divine plan. You can come onto the stage of life. To understand this energy, or any energy, I think it's very helpful to think about the opposite energy. You can understand light by understanding darkness. In the case of the Magician card, think about what it would be like to lie sick in bed. You have all these ideas, thoughts, desires, there's so much you want to do. But all these metaphysical impulses in your head cannot happen if you have no healthy, fully functioning body to create these ideas in the physical reality. Search back in your own life about a situation when you felt like something was happening to you and you had no recourse, no way to mitigate the consequences, to reduce the blow, to modify the situation. And then that sudden realization that, oh, actually, there is something I can do about it, that you have a course of action, that you can be an active agent that modifies the reality around you. That feeling of power when you realize that you can be an active moderator of reality and that you can protect yourself from what's coming towards you, that sense of empowerment is coded in the Magician card. The next card in the Major Arcana is the High Priestess. It represents the time in a person's life when they become aware of their inner world. The life that you live when seemingly nothing happens on the outside, when seemingly you do nothing and nothing happens to you. This card represents the unconscious, the place where all the seeds of all that you can be are found. Do you ever look at what you have achieved or become and you reflect on the journey to this point in your life? You realize that you had been this person all along. You had wanted this all along. You had been walking towards this moment in your life all along. The seeds of this achievement had always been there in your subconsciousness. Everything that we ever achieve begins with a dream, with a vision in our head. Sometimes this vision is conscious and realized. We have a relatively clear idea of what we want, but very often there is a stage before that when we only have a vague picture of what we want to do with our lives, what we want to become, what we want to achieve, to have, where we want to see ourselves, and so on. Deep reflection is how these subconscious vague ideas become more realized, more acknowledged dreams and visions. This search within, this inner work, is the stage and the process represented by the High Priestess. The next card is the Empress, and it carries the mood of the child's relationship with its mother. This is the energy of being able to express yourself fully and without any self-restraint, because you know that you will not be judged or criticized. The mother symbolizes the ultimate receptive energy. So when a child is engaging in an exchange of energies with the mother figure, it feels most accepted, appreciated, and loved. Nothing stands in the way of you being fully yourself. These days, there are many families where this is not the reality of the mother-child relationship. Many people feel jaded by their mothers or children, but ideally, this relationship should be a safe space where you feel free of any judgment, you feel loved, you feel safe from any threat of withdrawal of love. This is the energy that the Empress carries. The Emperor symbolizes the child's second most important relationship, that with the father or the father figure. It teaches the child particularly masculine principles such as authority, force, the notion that power is responsibility. With power comes the duty to serve the community. The energy that this card brings is one of strategy, foresight, discipline to execute your plans until the end. Think about the movie Spider-Man. There is a scene there where someone tells the main character that power is responsibility. This is the Emperor card in its purest form. Very often, we fight with other people for more power, but once we reach the position that we wanted to reach, we realize that with power comes responsibility. You can do anything in this life as long as you are ready to face the consequences, to live with the implications of what you did. You might want to be the president, the most powerful man in the country, the man who has managed to write his name in history. But are you willing to have to make the decisions that a president must make? You might want to be a princess, but are you willing to live with the duties and limitations of royal life? You want people to treat you like the big boss, but are you willing to protect your tribe from the enemies and to fight in a battle? These are the kind of dilemmas and dualities that the child explores at this part of the journey. The Hierophant is when the child comes into contact with tradition and conventions. Most fundamentally, it represents teaching institutions such as the church, schools, and academies. Tradition represents a roadmap to dealing with life, situations, and people. But it also represents limitations, conventional, not innovative ways of doing things. There is the accepted, non-turbulent way of doing things, and there is the pain of innovation. Social traditions versus social innovation and regeneration. As you go through life, you come across many situations which you wonder how to respond to. Tradition offers a ready, time-tested solution. But if you always use these ready-made solutions instead of doing your own research, you miss out on the opportunity to invent something better. On one hand, tradition helps you deal with life quickly. You don't have to search for solutions. It has already been discovered long before you were born. You can save yourself time and pain and just trust the wisdom of many previous generations. So in that sense, tradition is important, it's useful, it's vital. But on the other hand, if you only rely on traditions, you miss out on progress, on opportunities to invent better ways of doing things. The danger here is to become stagnant. I am sure that if you are old enough to watch this video, you have already been in at least one, but most likely many such situations where you wanted to do something that went against the conventions of society. The temptation is to disregard social norms and go with what you feel like doing. Who hasn't been tempted? But at the same time, if we are honest, we have to admit that if everyone is to disregard social norms, that would make societies more volatile and unstable. Like with everything, balance is the key. The Hierophant is also the time when you begin to question authority and wonder if maybe there are better ways to solve situations, better ways to arrange community life. The Lover's card introduces the child to puberty. This period of life is associated with the first appearance of sexual desires, and these physical urges force the child to form new type of relationships, romantic relationships, which, unlike all previous relationships that the child has had, is built on equal footing. For the first time, the other side in a relationship is not an older person who is more knowledgeable about the world, but unequal. The simple lesson here is to learn to relationship. In all the previous cases, the lesson was a message that other people had to relay to the child. Here, the teaching is found in the existence of such relationship, in learning to exist within a relationship with another person. In a way, this is the first relationship where you are not in the position of someone who is being protected or given knowledge to help them navigate life, but you are in a position where parental protectiveness is missing and you have to give as much as you're given. It is different from other relationships also because it doesn't include guidance. It doesn't include helping you adapt to the world. It is a relationship where the other person requires things from you. Learning to relationship is probably the best way to synthesize the learning of this card. The Chariot relates to the same stage of life, but it represents those situations when the child goes through emotional turbulence, when his emotions are so powerful that they threaten to overwhelm him completely. And the lesson is that the child has to learn to discipline its emotions. This is the period in the life of a child, now a teenager, when you come to face the intensity and strength of your own emotions and how they may overpower your mind. This is where you are introduced to the power of emotions and the need to control opposing forces in your life. To better understand this energy, look back on those times in your life when you felt like a bomb had been dropped on your life. That moment when you told yourself, oh my God, I need to regain my composure. But the moment you said that, you realized how difficult this would be because your mind has been blasted into a million pieces lying scattered on the floor. The lesson of the Chariot is the need to learn to refix the pieces back together, to unblock your mind, to unnumb your senses, and learn to subject your emotions to your will. Learn to hold polarities together. When you learn to do that, comes the Strength card. The Strength card is that moment in life when you meet your first storm, a situation that requires you to rely on your inner strength, to keep your ground even in the face of adversaries. This is where you learn that confidence, composure, having control of yourself and being centered within will help you weather every storm. Think about the night before an exam. What do you tell yourself? You tell yourself that you need to remain calm because if you go there stressed, nervous, and shivering, you will never be able to focus and the information that you studied will not come up in your brain when you need it. This is the energy of the Strength card. Have composure, have confidence, and the battle that is before you is half won. When you realize how powerful your inner spirit can be, you realize that you need to nurture it. That's where the hermit comes. So you withdraw from the world to do the inner work, to listen to the inner voice. You realized in the Strength card how important a strong sense of self is. So now you're consciously nurturing that inner power by going within and searching for your own truth. To sense the energy of this card, think about the times when you weren't sure which way to go. You needed time for reflection to make sure you make the right choice, to make sure you act in a way that is consistent with the call within. With this card, there is a need to recenter yourself, to think things through so that you can step more firmly into your power. The Wheel of Fortune. At this step of the way, the lesson is that life is subject to cycles. What goes up will eventually come down and vice versa. This is the most fundamental, overarching principle of the universe. The one thing that no one can change. The one rule that both kings and mortals are subjects to. Just the way the sun goes up every day and then comes down into the lowest point in the sky, so everything else is a subject to cycles. With this card, the presence of the universe's consciousness and principles is very strong. It is a reminder of all that. Think about when you were young and you had a favorite singer or actress. Chances are you no longer admire this person. You have outgrown them. You used to be a fan of someone, now you have no idea where they are or what they do. This is the natural flow of life. Things change. We change. We begin to feel differently about old things. Other people evolve in directions we do not understand. Then, years later, out of nowhere, life begins to bring you closer to new versions of the old things. And the story begins again. It's not the same, but it rhymes. This is the Wheel of Fortune. The Justice card is the period when the child comes up against the backbone of cosmic wisdom, the notion that actions have consequences. This is the second most fundamental law of the universe, which is much more powerful than all other society-made laws with which the child was already acquainted in the Hierophant card. You can bend human laws, but you can never evade universal laws. Like the Wheel of Fortune card, this card too reveals the presence of higher cosmic laws. It's a different law, but the basic concept is the same. Justice is often experienced as karma. This is not justice delivered through legal proceedings or revenge, although in a personalized reading it could be. But on a more fundamental level, this is about karmic justice and the inability for good or for bad to escape from our past actions. Good things will come back to us. Bad things will find a door to re-enter as well. Everything that is meant for us will find us. The key here is that everything that you do will have long-term consequences. If you did something wrong, you might be able to escape these consequences at first, but somewhere down the line, there will be a trade-off. You will have to pay a price for the initial transgression. This doesn't mean that you will lose everything, but some sort of karmic justice will be delivered. And the opposite, if you have been honest and genuine every step of the way, ill-meaning people will not be able to take away your achievements. The Hangman is where you need to do a sacrifice, to let go of something or to face delays as a way to pay back a debt you own, or as a way to pay for something you will receive in the future. The Hangman is where we have to let go of something as a karmic payment for past or for the future. Learn to let go and to observe the universal laws doing their work. A period of sitting still, waiting for the other players, actors, forces to play their cards before it's your turn to play again. This time of waiting is by no means time wasted. It should be seen as an opportunity to reflect on lessons learned and the way forward. It is a temporary slowing down to make sure you are doing the right thing in the right way. Think about a time in your life when you felt you were being delayed, but you knew, deep down you knew, it is better not to force the process. Instead, trust the process. That's the message of the Hangman. Despite the name, the Death card is actually one of the most positive cards in the tarot deck. The child needs to learn that as one door closes, another one opens. Everything eventually runs its course, and when it becomes old, it's time to let it die and let destiny replace it with something new. At this point in the journey, the child loses people, projects, things that they hold dear. But this external loss is not a real loss as much as it is a change, because something new is coming. And it cannot enter your life if there's no space for it. The things that the child loses at this stage are all things that it should already be ready to let go of, even if it doesn't feel like that. Look back at a time in your life when you used the word outgrow. Sometimes we outgrow people or situations. Sometimes they outgrow us. Either way, life is a change, and change is movement, so life cannot be static. As we move, we change, and the things that we carried in our hearts so far, we cannot continue to carry with us on the road ahead. It's important with this card to understand that just the way you can outgrow a person or a situation and create that change, they can outgrow us too. And then they create the change for us. Change is inevitable and we shouldn't resist it. Instead, when we are invited by events to let go, we should spearhead this process and do it consciously. Temperance is about balance. It comes after death to teach you that faced with a loss or with a lengthy transition, the most important thing is to keep your balance, avoiding extreme actions and maintaining equilibrium in your inner world between action and inaction. That equilibrium inside will translate into a balanced environment around you. This step of the journey teaches the child, which is by this time already a grown-up, that times of transition and change, times when an entire chapter of your life draws to a close and the dawn of a new world is slowly rising, what matters the most is having a clear vision and balance. When the ground from underneath you is beginning to crumble, balance is what you need to master to make it through. It's important to understand that balance is maintained by controlling the opposing forces in your life, not by completely drowning in one of the extremes. If some force has pushed you in one direction, you need to master enough of the opposite force to maintain the equilibrium. The Devil card is a situation where you feel that you have no alternatives, that if a force pushes you to do something, there is no force to prevent you from sliding in that direction. It appears in those situations where we feel cornered. You tell yourself, I have no choice. And the skill that the child is required to learn at this point is that you always have options. You can always expand your options. How? By expanding your horizons, by going beyond the immediate, the material, the 3D. Think about the following situation. You are in a shop and you have to buy a gift for a friend. You have decided to buy a lamp, but they only have red lamps and you want a black lamp. Seemingly, you have no choice. But if you rise above, if you zoom out, you will break free from the confines because you will realize that, first of all, you can go to another store where they might have a black lamp. And second, you don't really have to buy a lamp. In the end of the day, what you need is a gift for your friend. It doesn't absolutely have to be a lamp. The great lesson with the Devil card is that you can set yourself free by creating more options for yourself, by broadening your field of vision. The Tower represents a period of sudden, chaotic change that pulls the rug from underneath you. Once again, like in the Death card, old structures are crumbling. But this time, unlike in the Death card, the process is sudden, fast, and the new is not yet well visible on the horizon. With the Tower, there's always a vacuum period of time when you don't know what, why, when, how. If you have been in a similar situation, what did you think? Chances are in that period in your life, you were telling yourself that you only have yourself to rely on, that you need to mobilize your entire energy to make it through. The Tower comes into the life of a child to teach it that in times of crisis, it can find security and safety only within itself. It teaches you to be your own support system, your own savior, your own raft in the stormy sea, your own hero. Think about those times in your life when you felt like life was trying to drown you, like it had plunged you into the deepest and darkest of abysses. Chances are, if you ever went out of this hole, it was because you found that strength within, not without. Or that you were able to find strength outside because you had already found strength within. What happens once the old has been unapologetically demolished and purged? When that happens, the next stage of the journey of the child is the Star card. With the old world gone, there is space for the new. But what is this new world? We don't know. In the Death card, the change is gradual. The collapse of the old happens step by step. In the Tower, the change is sudden. It's difficult to connect the sudden event to anything before it. So the main character of the story, the child, now finds itself surrounded by emptiness. But it is a positive emptiness, an empty canvas which invites you to get creative and create the new world. There is an opportunity, even an invitation, to be a creator. which brings back your own faith in the possibilities of life, in your own power. The feeling of this card is one of the first sunny day after the storm. After the calamity, you know you can survive. You know you can live without the old, and you feel your own power. With this renewed faith in your own abilities, you continue the journey. The Moon card is the period in one's life when you look inside to hear your intuition and to learn to trust it. It is your guiding star. Having burned itself once, the child is doubtful. What if I make the same mistakes? Are my judgments and discernments accurate? What looks to me as something evil, is it really evil? What looks to me as good, is it really good? This is where the child meets its inner fears, self-deceptions, and self-illusions. The Star card is all about hope and faith in your own abilities that are enough to make you take the next step. But once you make that next step, you meet the Moon, an energy of uncertainty. Have I really learned my lessons? I think I have, but have I really? I already set out on a journey once and I ended up with the Tower. I am setting out on a journey again. Am I at risk of repeating the same old paradigms? If you have ever been in this situation, it is very likely that you answered this question to yourself by telling yourself that, you know what, I'll just trust my intuition. I will trust my gut feeling, my instinct. And that's the message of the Moon card. Trust your intuition because it's based on experience, on knowledge, even if you don't realize it. The Sun is the part of the journey that is about the sense of fulfillment that comes when you live in alignment with your true self. There is the childlike free expression of self, but behind this external childlikeness is an adult whose sense of happiness is a result of having mastered all the previous energies. It is when life is defined by abundance, radiance, and success. Think about those times in your life when you confidently stood on your own 2 feet, knowing that good things are coming and that nothing can push you off the top. And maybe at that time, many people looked at you and thought your confidence is cockiness, but you know that at this point of the journey, confidence is not based on self-aggrandizement, but on the experience you gained while walking through all the fires that you walked through. Judgment represents the final years of one's life when you reflect back on your choices and actions. There is a sense that a huge chapter is coming to a close and it's time to evaluate the past. Judgment is a card for analysis and reflection. And when we reach the end, somehow we naturally tend to look back at the beginning. The morning it all began like every other morning. Evaluation, reflection on the journey without, but also within. Think about a time in your life when a relationship ended. Could be a romantic relationship or a professional relationship. When we reach the end, we'll look back towards the beginning and we think about all the key moments. We analyze how we ended up here. What were the crucial junctions? How is it that each decision I took me to this place I find myself in now? There is an ending that comes with a sense of aged wisdom. The World is the last card in the Major Arcana, the grand finale. It comes when you have mastered the energies of the universe. It reflects the period when you learn to balance within yourself air, fire, water, and earth. The period of ultimate inner centeredness, balance, and composure. Standing firmly on your own 2 feet, having mastered the lessons of the previous cards. What the child set out to achieve in the Fool card, the child has now completed in the World card. With this card, chances are you'll look back on something with a sense of pride and fulfillment. Imagine this feeling as a parent looking at their child. Their child has now grown up, it has found its place in the world, and the parent feels a sense that his or her mission has been completed. Now you can leave a legacy to the universe, to those who come after you. Or you can give that child to the world, to the universe, to its own destiny. And you are overwhelmed by this realization that your mission has been accomplished.